my name is Susan Hayes-Culleton, and I'm really delighted to talk to you today all around technology and sustainability. And what's even better is the fact that we have some people who have got a lot to say on this topic, and they have a lot of interesting ideas and a lot of future-focused ways of looking at these two themes and also how they intersect. But in particular as well, because this is the essence of Future Skills Week, we do very, very much want to make sure that we are factoring in the type of skills that people will be needed in order to find the jobs of the future. So what I'm going to do is that I'm going to, first of all, I'm going to pop a link here into the chat. And what I'm going to do is that I'm going to ask each person who's here today, will you please fill in this survey, right? So it's a short survey, and we're going to use this survey to put your thoughts to the panel. So you're going to be right beside us, right beside us here you're going to be in the passenger seat beside us during this conversation. So could you please just pop in, just click on the link there and just pop in your answers. And I'm going to take your answers from there. Sometimes it'll be percentages, sometimes it'll be things that you've said, and that's what I'm going to use in order to put it forward to our audience, or to our four speakers, who I'm going to introduce to you in a moment. Okay, so now it might just take 2 or 3 minutes to do that. So while of course I feel like talking my whole way through that, I'm going to give you a little bit of peace here now to fill that out. And as the answers come through, then what I'm going to do is I'm going to make sure that everybody has a chance. So again, there's more people joining us. You're super, super welcome. So there is a survey there. If we could ask you to please fill out the survey. It's simply a Google form. And then we're going to take the findings from the survey, and that is what we're going to use to build the foundation of our conversation today. After all, this is Future Skills Week, and all of you are right here in the driving seat with us. And I will let you know when I see the first answers of those coming through. So if we could ask for everybody to please fill out the survey. Okay, lots more people joining. And I might just ask there for the people who are moderating, if you could maybe, as you see people joining, just add the link in repeatedly into the chat so that then we can make sure that we hear from everybody. That would be wonderful. Okay, so hello to everyone who's just joining us. So we're just asking everybody to fill out a survey here. So that then we can get a sense of how people in the audience are feeling about certain topics. And as soon as the responses come in, I'll be able to put those then to the panel. But for anybody who's just joined us, I've just posted the link there again in the chat. There's more of you coming in all the time, which is brilliant. So it does take a few moments. And let's just see what you have to say, because I do think it is really important to hear your voice as well. Definitely, we're going to be taking your questions as well through chat and a variety of others. Okay, so I see more people have joined the session. So we're asking each person just to fill out a survey so that we can use this. Okay, the first 2 responses have started coming in. Yeah, so not at all surprising there. Brilliant. Okay, we have 5 responses in now. Very, very interesting. Very, very interesting. Yeah, 6 responses coming in now. They're flying in the door. So far, I'll tell you, we have 66% of our audience who has filled them in as female. And very interesting ideas here on your thoughts on digital literacy. I know I'm sounding cryptic for the moment, but I'm going to be putting all of these You're telling us all about the world that you want. Oh my God. It's, yeah, I'll be intrigued to put this now to our panel. And also very interesting as well what you're saying. Okay. Okay, so hi Elizabeth, there is the code. So we have 11 responses in here now. 75% of our audience so far today is female. Okay, and I've just now seen where you feel the future job opportunities. One has now overtaken the other. In terms of your digital literacy, there's a very clear interest in there. Lots and lots of responses there in terms of future jobs, what you want to be doing, and also it's yeah, there's some really striking elements there of what's coming out. Okay, I have 15 responses, so please do keep them coming in. 70, as I say, I'm going to be putting the answers to your survey, the answers to the survey. There's 16 responses in now. This is what I'm going to be putting. So you are absolutely in the you're in the driving seat here with us, or in the passenger seat here with us. I'm going to be using these points, and I'm going to be taking your thoughts, and I'm going to be putting them to the panel to get their understanding and their reaction. I keep seeing things change over here, so please do fill it in until you're done. I've 17 in so far, and also I'm just going to go back then to the moderating staff. If you could repost the link as people are coming in and just let them know in the chat. I'm going to now put my focus entirely on the guests in question. So first of all, can I take a quick run around the room here, and can I ask each of the people that we have on our panel today to introduce themselves? So I'm going to first of all start off with our Ulster University member of staff herself. Can I go to you, please, Dr. Shirley Davey? Anybody who has been involved in Ulster University Business School will be familiar with you. But first of all, can you tell us a little bit about you, please?
No problem. Thank you, Susan. Thank you for the opportunity to speak today. So my name is Shirley Davey. I teach innovation and the future of work at Ulster University Business School. So I'm passionate about teaching innovation, helping people get new ideas to the market to make a real positive impact on society. And I work with a number, I'm on the steering board of Tech Ireland, and we collaborate with Digital DNA New Courses, and we work with Foresee Your Future. So we work with a wide number of industry and skills stakeholders right across the island of Ireland and beyond that.
Perfect. That's great indeed, Shirley. And as usual, you are straight to the point and succinct with it. So thank you very much. And we're really looking forward to hearing from you a variety of different elements that you have to say around tech and sustainability. Next, can I go to Simon Bailey, please? So Simon, anybody that has any familiarity with Digital DNA will probably know you too. But all the same, can you tell us a little bit about you and indeed Digital DNA as well, please?
Yeah, thanks, Susan. And look, great to be here. I think this is it's a very topical conversation right now, especially with everything that's going on in the world. But look, I part of the team at Digital DNA. Have been there for almost 5 years, and we're essentially a media publishing and events company, and our focus is all on it's all predicated around the technology sector, innovation, very much future facing, and just try and sort of stoke those conversations around technologies that are impacting our world. Personally, I'm massively passionate about technology and the opportunities that exist, and sharing that with people, and also talking about the good side and also the not so good side, because I think that's a very relevant conversation. So look, looking forward to the next, I don't know, 60 minutes or so, Susan.
Yes, indeed, and so are we, Simon. And as I see the responses coming in here, I think that there'll be plenty of vehicles to convey that passion, because certainly it looks like some of the audience are very passionate about these themes as well, sometimes in conflicting ways, which is brilliant. Great. So I'm going to go to you now, Rachel. So wait until we hear this ball of energy coming down the track here.
No pressure.
Please also tell us as well about Foresee Your Future too, because we know that you're super passionate about that.
Absolutely. So yeah, just this year became managing director of a social enterprise called Foresee Your Future. Very much focused on helping young people, helping to empower young people to make better choices for their own futures, for their careers, to contribute to society. focusing very much on 13-year-olds at the minute, with lots of events planned for 2022 and the development of lots of interesting and engaging things, some of which I can't disclose just yet, but it's all very good and exciting. Prior to that, spent 10 to 12 years in the engineering and manufacturing sectors in Northern Ireland, so very much involved in the likes of clean tech and innovation and technology, but perhaps not in the way people think. When they hear the word technology, it's very focused on all of our lovely tech and IT and software type companies, but there's a whole other world out there as well where technology is infiltrating into traditional sectors. So that's just a wee bit on my background.
Brilliant, and I think we'll get a chance as well, Rachel, to really delve into the nature of the work that you do and the people who you're working with and what's important as well. And then also, last and certainly not least, John O'D, please, from Tech Ireland. Will you tell us all about you and Tech Ireland too?
Hi guys, thanks Susan. Thank you for the opportunity to talk here. Tech Ireland, for those of you who don't know it, we're essentially we track and promote the Irish innovation community. It's a not-for-profit. It's an all-Ireland organisation. There are about 4,000 profiles on the Tech Ireland site. So if you're looking for information on Irish tech, investors, multinationals, innovation hubs across the island, come to the techireland.org, and it's free to search, and there's lots of information there about the Irish tech ecosystem.
Perfect, John, thank you very much. And I think that the tech ecosystem and navigating it is very important, and it is something that we're going to be talking about quite a lot as well today. So thank you to each of you for taking us through a little bit about you and your biography. And what I'm going to do is I just want to set the scene a little bit about looking back so that we can come forward. I'm somebody that has had a business for the past 11 years. I've had a company for the past 11 years, and I started my first business when I was 21. And if I think back to 3 major tech trends that have changed the way we've done business, they would be, number one, I would say, is what we're doing today, which is enabling people to have real-time live conversations using video, whether that's Zoom or Teams or so on. And a lot of people think that, you know, the rise of this has been very important over the past, where are we at now, 15 months? I would argue differently. I think it's always been important, because if you're doing business internationally at all, or in any place where you didn't have the same geography, video conferencing has enabled that literally face-to-face communication to be as seamless as possible without physically being in the same environment. The second one, and I think we underappreciate this, is artificial intelligence. The reason that I think this is making a big difference is, for example, when I started off the business first, we used to bring like a box of receipts into the accountant. After that, then we used to email them in. That was real innovation at the time. Then after that, then we used to put them into Dropbox. And now we have, and by the way, you'd wait until the end of the year then to see your accounts. And if you were going to have any sort of management accounts or forecasts, you'd have them on Excel spreadsheets that you'd update. Personally, just an insight into me, I love a good spreadsheet. But all the same, that was all quite manual. Today, our accounting software is real time. I can print off a P&L or a balance sheet for you right now. And secondly, is that the accounting software looks at the transactions coming in at the banks, looks at the invoices outstanding, and matches them up on its own. And then the person who's now responsible for overseeing that task checks if the robot is correct. So there's a way in which AI is speeding things up. Even the way when I put together this survey, Google Forms was suggesting to me what type of question types that they would be to speed me up. So I think artificial intelligence is actually far more visible or impactful than we think. And then the other form of technology as well that I think has changed everything is cloud computing. This week, I was fortunate to be able to run some of the future skills workshops. And in one case, and I know some of you were here that were there then, is that I was able to run a Google Sheet activity where I could see how people were answering different questions in real time. And I was able to tailor the training experience according to them. So whether it is how we might co-author something on Google Docs, or just the speed of cloud computing, the fact that I don't need to rely on USBs anymore. I mean, I know both Simon and Rachel are doing the Masters in Executive Leadership in Ulster University that I did. I mean, you guarded that USB back then with your life. I remember in college when I was an undergrad in NUI Galway, rewards being given up for USBs that were found with like 200 years worth of work put on them. That day is gone. So if you think about all those three trends, in my case, I'd put forward AI, I would put forward video conferencing, and I would also put forward real-time collaboration. I think that they would be my three trends. And I'm going to go to the audience after this, and I'm going to ask them to pick one key trend that they've seen either in technology or sustainability that they think has made a big difference. My sustainability ones, actually, the first one, I'm only going to pick two here. The first one is the SDGs, the Sustainable Development Goals. And they were kind of this big announcement that was made at the time. The whole world was agreeing we were all going to move forward on sustainability development goals, and it was going to be brilliant. But you know when I really saw the cookie crumbling on this regard is I was applying one time for European funding through Horizon 2020, then it's called Horizon Europe now. And unless our business was in some way enabling the SDGs to come to pass, we weren't even going to get a look, and never mind get it approved. So that was when I really saw, okay, SDGs are now coming right into the fore. And the other area, which is I think a massive area of growth from an investing point of view, I don't mean private equity investing, and I know we'll talk about that too as well, but from an investor's point of view is ESG, environmental, social and governance. That is the fastest growing area of investing in Europe from all investing point of view, as distinct to traditional investors where they would be looking for higher earnings and higher dividends. And that now is when money is moving the needle, then of course lots of people will sit up and take notice. So they're my 5 key trends that I have spotted from my individual practical experience. So I'm going to just say artificial intelligence, cloud computing, video conferencing, the Sustainable Development Goals, and ESG investing. Simon, what's your one key trend that you've seen over the last couple of years that has made the difference in either of those two? Just one now, Simon, because I know you're debating in your head to pick about one of 4.
I know you're really throwing it out there because look, I think there are a lot of trends, and I think you know, to pin me down on one is really, really tough. But look, the one thing is and it's probably aligned to what you're saying, Susan. I see climate tech specifically, and that's a very broad statement right now, and hopefully I'll get to go into that in a bit later. But certainly climate tech, I think, is something that this generation and this decade will be known for. And if we were all to jump in one of Elon Musk's time traveling machines and go forward 40, 50 years, I think they will look back at this decade as the decade of, you know, where there was a lot of innovation centered around climate tech, and there's a lot of ways we could take that conversation. But that's where I would be pinning my colors to the mast right now, Susan.
Okay, great. Shirley, how about you?
I think it's really all about the power of people in the current era at the moment. So yeah, and the power of people to adapt to change. Climate change isn't about the climate, it's not about technology. It's about people that are at the heart of that.
And do you think within that case, so Shirley, would it be like the proliferation of open source technology? Would it be the voice of everybody on social media? Would it be the democratization of an awful lot of technology? Do those reflect the idea of the power of the people?
I think it's the ability of people to collectively collaborate and develop new solutions. When we think about things like AI and deep technology, there's a really nice that Rebecca Share has at what if solving one problem could unlock solutions to thousands more. So when we look at deep tech, it's people are the solutions.
Brilliant. And I think that whole idea of if we could, let me just repeat that now to me and tell me if I'm incorrect. If by solving one problem, then you create the solution for thousands more. Is that what you said, Shirley?
Yeah, I've got it right here. What if solving one problem can unlock solutions to thousands more?
Yeah, great idea. If it's, well, not if it's possible, because we're always thinking in this panel today that everything's going to be possible. Rachel, how about you? What one key trend have you seen that has made a huge difference in recent times?
I don't think if I'm asked for one thing ever that I'm able to hold to that. Simon's laughing at me here. It's like, how many can I fit in a sentence? I'll caveat this first. From the background in engineering and tech and manufacturing, the things like process automation with robotics, the hydrogen, the clean tech, you know, where that's going with the world, and the lightweightness structures, that there's huge numbers there. For me personally, with the transition I've made recently, it would be the social value impact in terms of sustainability, in terms of where we're going. As Shirley mentioned, the collaborative aspect, there's a massive trend happening, and it's potentially a bit of an undercurrent at the minute. But you know, especially for employers, people want to know how they're impacting, what their impact is on the world. There's a lot of entrepreneurship and innovation happening among younger generations for this model of cooperative or social enterprise, where business with profit isn't a dirty word, and profit is needed. But absolutely, it's how do we run and establish businesses and do innovations that have more positive impact than not.
So if I could paraphrase what you've said, then, Rachel, in 3 words, it's people, planet, and profit.
It is.
Yeah, not mutually exclusive.
But I think even the sort of triple bottom line idea is going that step further now, where it's more societal, wider impact. Yes, people, planet, profit, as let's assess that, but it's how do we have mass social value impact by collectively leveraging what we're capable of doing, and doing it for the greater good.
Okay, yeah, and that is an expansion of the triple bottom line, all right, is beyond my people that I employ, beyond my profit and my P&L, is having that wider appeal. Okay, and John, what's the big trend that you've seen in tech or in sustainability?
Well, you know, I suppose maybe kind of digitization and digital security, those kind of issues. You know, I suppose the pandemic has changed so much. You know, they say that there are some decades when nothing happens, and then there are weeks when decades happen, as it were. I mean, so much has changed in the last year. I mean, in terms of e-commerce, I mean, it has probably doubled in the last year. We're really more aware of how vulnerable we are to in a digital world. You know, the fight from money, ATMs have dropped by nearly 50%. Checks have a third less than last year. So digitization, and I suppose lifestyle as well. I mean, you know, 50% more cycling. People aren't going to go back. People want to work remotely. So the world is kind of changing into a much more kind of digital world, I think, and that has implications for every industry and every part of society.
And when you talk about digitization, you know, as you were saying that, I was just thinking about how our lives have become more digitized now. Like the documents that we have, you take a picture of something, so then you don't need to hold on to it, or the lives that you might live, you know, conversations are had on WhatsApp now that determine all sorts of things. I'm now going to move to you, Rachel. I just want to share my screen, and I'm going to show you one of the answers that we've got in here. And this is of the responses that we've got so far. And for everybody, please do feel free, if you haven't filled out the survey, and please do feel free to do so. Rachel, what I've seen here is that 53.6% of people feel digitally literate, and 46.4% of people say maybe. Can you comment on that, and can you tell us what do you think digital literacy means? And then what I'll do is I'll show the panel what everybody else thinks as well, because we asked them to explain why they came up with that. But what's your definition of digitally literate?
It's as broad as everything else, I say, Susan. I think that's really interesting, actually, and I think there's an understanding there. There's that sort of common thing of you don't know what you don't know. I think from years of working with young people and doing apprenticeships and different things, there's a concept, this sort of common idea that if you use, you know, PlayStations and Nintendos and have a Facebook profile, that means you're digitally literate. So we expect young people to be digital ready when they come into organizations. And actually it's a lot broader than that, and it depends entirely on how you use those digital skills, but it's certainly having a wider knowledge and understanding of the types of technology out there, of when and how to use them, of definitely like an upskilling piece across that. But digital literacy, I think there's a definite gap there. It's just really interesting that there's a certain percentage aren't confident to be able to say that they feel they are digital literate. Yeah.
Exactly. And you know what, Rachel, I'm going to read out some of the responses to you. I'm not going to share my screen for this because it is personal to people. Now, we don't know who you are, by the way, but so it's not that I'm going to refer back to anybody, but I just want to give you the specific statements that people have, because during Future Skills Week, this is all about people who are here, So it is important to hear their voice. So so people tell us they've always enjoyed learning to use and researching new technology, they're working daily online, have been comfortable using computers through study and various other activities. My skills are probably better than average, but I'd like to be able to manage it even better. I don't feel I'm as literate as I should be. Rachel, how literate should one be?
And that's where it's a moving target, really. I mean, so sort of prime example of this, my primary degree was in public relations, and I graduated in 2012. And at the time, there was nothing on the curriculum to do with YouTube, social media, search engine optimization, website development. None of that existed in 2012, which wasn't a huge amount of time ago, really. So obviously curriculums have had to move and keep pace with industry in order to maintain that for the people coming out. But certainly it was a lot of self-teaching and development. So, you know, the job of a marketer, which was my first postgrad job, might have involved press clippings and person-to-person events and creating advertisements for magazines back in the day. But today it's heavily entrenched with CRM systems and databases and you know, analytics and behavior profiles and all that good stuff. So it's been completely touched by digital skills. Now, at the same time, does an engineer or, you know, does someone in hospitality management need to use the same digital skills that I do? Maybe not. There is a baseline, I think, for understanding how to maybe assess or use to have that lifelong learning and ability to develop digital skill. And also assess the security risk and the data side of it. You know, not everyone needs to be a software engineer or a programmer, but there's certain criteria I think that we need to have as savvy digital users. But beyond that, it's a lot of on-the-job upskilling, whether it's your own, you know, off your own bat that you decide to do that, or an employer that does that relative to the sector you're in. But what we're seeing is people having to become much more broad in their generalist understanding, but much more niche in their application at the same time, which is really, really interesting.
And Paul O'Connor is agreeing with you there by saying the problem with defining literacy is the language upon it's based. Different organizations use different combinations of digital tools and platforms. Just like you're saying, if it's a marketing, your focus on marketing tech might be different. If Paul, interesting that you say that as well, because during one of the sessions I ran during the week, we were asking people like what tools that they've used, and a lot of people didn't consider things like the Google Suite as a tool because it's just there, you know. So that can also be an issue when it comes, let's say, to interviewing and so on. When they ask about competence with technology, we don't think I'm able to use Twitter and LinkedIn and so on like that. Therefore, it's just not there. Rachel, I'm just going to put a couple of more of these statements to you, and then I'm going to move on then and look at sustainability. So people have also said here, I'm usually able to grasp new applications or technologies on my own. I can get by most days. Open to learning, recognizing the challenge, then challenge myself to learn the new tech. Part of my role, and I need to use tech on a daily basis. I don't work in the field, but source funding for this area. I feel I'm capable using a range of technology and digital items as I use technology daily. It's advancing at a tremendous rate. It should have been, you know, considering it the past year. Do you know what I'm seeing here as something that's standing out is technology being used every day. It's an everyday thing. Just in terms of people maybe who don't feel as comfortable as they feel they should be, or that sense that do they need to be upskilling all the time? Like, does technology touch all of our lives every day in every job?
I firmly believe so. Yeah, I firmly believe so. I think even, you know, no matter what size of organization it is, especially as we're, you know, trying to increase competitiveness and trying to develop as organizations, there's a huge number of SMEs are bringing in the likes of Teams or Slack or, you know, SharePoint systems. So there's always the move towards that. And I think there is a real danger that there's certainly a large section of society that might feel left behind by that, or certainly it adds a certain amount of workload stress. So there is an obligation on employers and on leaders to factor that in, that just because young people, as an example, if we take them as a demographic, are practically born with an iPad or a mobile phone in their hands, doesn't mean that they're digital literate or tech competent. So you can't just assume, well, if you use Facebook or Twitter every day, then we don't need to provide training for you to maximize the capability of your you know, comfort level with using technology. It does actually add a huge amount of stress to the user. You know, health and safety legislation recognizes that. I think also it's the piece around sort of, you know, it used to be death by PowerPoint, now it's death by Zoom. I think as a marketer, you know, in my previous career, I was inundated with emails and newsletters and blasts daily. Are you on the latest tech stack? Are you doing this? Are you doing that? You should be doing this. It can become incredibly overwhelming very quickly. So I think it's important too for organizations to draw a line between what they're not going to look at and what works and double down on that, because you spend half your time chasing your tail with new technologies, new platforms. You know, the next social media platform you should be on, I don't know where Clubhouse is now, but it's certainly not being talked about the way it was a month ago when everyone was losing their mind if they didn't get an access code, you know.
Yes, and I have one, and I haven't been in it in a while. So yeah, I suppose I'm walking your trend there. It's interesting. Paul mentions there. He said even the ECDL digital literacy qualification is pretty redundant these days. I did that, you know, a good few 100 years ago now, and I actually found it to be very, very handy at the time. And you're right, actually, Paul. That was a great way of describing digital literacy in itself. Donna says, totally agree, Paul. My daughter just completed this qualification this morning. So there's plenty of debating around ECDL over the past few weeks. Can I also say, please get involved in the conversation, chat into us, but also I have Twitter open here beside me. I'm going to my own, you can tweet me directly, or else, so I'm at Susan Hayes _. I'm just going to put that there into the chat. But also, if you simply put in something for #FutureSkillsWeek, that's the hashtag that I'm following as well. So I'll keep an eye over there. Shirley, you're in the business of upskilling people to get ready for new opportunities in the future. And here is, so we're now up to 30 responses. I just want to tell you here that of our 30 responses thus far and growing, 83.3% feel that there will be more job opportunities in this sector in the future. What are your thoughts on that?
That's really actually encouraging to see that. That's interesting because the OECD, the Organization for Economic and Cooperative Development, says that the jobs that are lost as a result of automation will be by far replaced by new types of jobs and new skills jobs. I'm laughing when I see Paul saying about the ECDL. For those of you who don't, and it's the European Computer Driving License. So yeah, and there is a lot of debate about its relevance. The OECD also says that the half-life of a digital skill today is round about 3.5 years. Okay, when I think about the pace of change, think about it. The pace of change has never been this fast, yet it will never be this slow again. This is what Justin Trudeau said at the World Economic Forum. When we think about that statement, this has enormous opportunity and indeed enormous potential in that realization. Heather McGowan and Chris Shipley talk about environmental climate change in their new book, The Adaptation Advantage. And when we take a step back in time, we've all heard of Moore's Law. George Moore said that back in 1965, the number of transistors per silicon chip would double every year. He revised that a decade later, that they would double, you know, every 2 years. It still holds true to some degree today, even though the accelerations in hardware have slowed to a certain extent. If we actually think about the implications of this, think about your average smartphone today. You get a smartphone there. It's got 1 million times more memory and 7 million times more storage than the Apollo 11 space rocket that took man to the moon. Or I love the analogy that if the VW Beetle, if you don't know what a VW Beetle is, Google Herbie, okay? If the VW Beetle it went along the same trajectory as silicon chips, the VW Beetle would be able to drive at 300,000 miles per hour and have 2 million miles per gallon. So undoubtedly, the pace of change is rapid. So I love Jeff says, yeah, Herbie Goes to Monte Carlo. Fantastic movie, Jeff, absolutely. So we teach our students today to be agile, adaptable, and be able to operate really well in this rapidly changing dynamic environment. But a little more than that, one of the courses we ran recently in collaboration with Digital DNA was a course, Transformational Management in a Digital World. And a nice example, one of our students, Wayne Denner, I don't know if he's on the call today, he actually started his own entrepreneurial company, CoBabble, and he recently launched it in Sweden. Their technology, which is all about QR, individual QR scanning and drivers for collaboration, and their technology is making a big difference in United Arab Emirates. So that's just one example of our students. I know Simon and Rachel are other examples of our students not just being adaptable, agile, dynamic, having all those great resilient confidence skills. Those are examples of our people that are actually driving transformational change. So I would say to people today, be a driver of change, be the change that you want to see in the world.
It's interesting there you mentioned about, say, the resilience entrepreneurship. Okay, entrepreneurship, I think, often straddles both technical and soft skills, Shirley, but how important is it as people are developing those technical skills? And can I just, did I hear you say the half-life of a digital skill is 3.5 years? Is that what you said?
Yeah, about 3. That's what the OECD says at the moment. So if you're learning Python today, you're going to need to reskill in in 2-3 years time. I think would my colleagues in the panel agree with that?
Yeah, I'd be interested to see, all right, if they could come in on the chat and to go on to that point. I'm also going to ask the employability staff as well on the in the chat to come back and refer back to Shirley's point. Before I go to the other members on the panel on this, Shirley, can I just check though, do you find that technology skills and soft skills need to move together in tandem? Is one moving ahead of the other? So if I'm able to code and I don't have resilience, or on the other hand, if I'm extremely good at emotional intelligence, but I don't know how to manage, let's say, a certain platform or manage a remote team, like, are they moving together in lockstep? And do you see the importance of that?
I think the need for the skills, and I don't think they are soft skills, Susan. They're hard things. Those skills that are empathy skills, emotional intelligence, resilience, confidence, collaboration skills. Those are hard things, and if you have those skills, you may not be able to code, but I will tell you that there's a number of the technology companies in Northern Ireland are really crying out for people with those types of abilities. And it's really interesting, the one thing that's almost a silver lining of the global COVID pandemic is essentially that companies and businesses have realized they can adapt to new technologies. I think it was the CEO of Microsoft said that we've seen 2 years of digital transformation in 2 months in 2020.
Oh, I well believe it, and I suppose it ties back to what John.
Yeah, it's those environmental factors that have driven this need, and those other skills as well, which are so important today.
Perfect. Yeah, and I think it's important that within these conversations is that we realize that they do move together. If I'm a super coder but I can't communicate in words as well, is that it can be quite challenging. Simon, can I go to you next, because I just like to tell you here what people have been saying around other sectors where they feel there will be employment growth. And the funny thing is an awful lot of them are actually tech. They're kind of tech with a small t. So robotics, pharmaceuticals, renewables, engineering, artificial intelligence, remote communications, agri-food, digitization, business analytics, biotechnology, financial sector. All of these areas are all possible areas for growth in the future, as per the audience. But what I'd love to see is, what key trends do you see shaping technology in the future?
Yeah, I think, I think listening to Rachel and Shirley at the moment it's interesting, and I think the soft skill conversation is never going to go away, and it's all about adaptability. And right now, we as a society, we as a species are trying to catch up with the technology. So we're talking about teaching people how to code, and to be honest with you, the technology will outpace us. I think, and we almost need to split the technology conversation into two. We don't need people who are going to build the next social media platform, the next consumer facing platform, the next enterprise software platform. We need people who are going to solve huge, big problems for the future society, for the next generation. That's what we need. So yes, you may develop skills that right now fix a problem, but we want people to be able to tackle, and this is where academia plays a huge role and government plays a huge role, to allow and to create that space to allow people to go and tackle those problems. So looking really down the line here, Susan, and I'll stick to my guns here around climate change. I think renewable energy is massive. So people who are actually able to go out and look at those big challenges around renewable energy is going to be key. The other one is about actually retrofitting multinational companies to become cleaner and to become greener. And what I mean by that is we only have to look what happened in The Hague and Amsterdam this week with Shell. Shell have now been mandated to basically cut their emissions by 45% by the end of 2030. The ramifications for that around the world are massive, because all multinationals, huge big companies, publicly traded companies, are now going to be looking at that, and they're going to be looking at their green footprint across their real estate and across their whole business. The people who are going to solve that are the students right now, are people who have problem solving skills on how they actually reduce emissions, because governments are going to be mandating these companies, because they've all signed up to the climate accord, the Paris Climate Accord. So that's going to be a massive thing. Problem solving, using technology to solve problems is going to be a huge thing. And again, doubling down on the clean tech bit for me, when we start thinking about electrification of cars and battery power and so on, I'm going to look really out in the distance here. And I think we will get, by 2030, the combustion engine is going to be coming off the roads. We're going to be using electric cars. But the next challenge is going to be how we make batteries more efficient. Because again, the raw materials that go into batteries are actually finite. It's like oil. There's only so many rich metals and rich earth materials to build those batteries. So how do you make batteries more efficient? How do you get more range? How do we store energy from renewables in batteries for longer to actually get it to the point that it needs to be delivered in homes, powering our phones, powering our cars, powering our data centers? All of that needs to be taken into consideration. And I'll throw one more in here, Susan, if you please indulge me. Food technology, agri-technology. We as a species are outgrowing this planet, and we need to create food more sustainably. And I think over the next 10, 20 years, technology will play a huge role in actually, developing more sustainable foods. And that's where people like data scientists, AI, people who are specializing in AI are going to come into their own, because they're going to be able to harness all of the data that's being produced in laboratories and actually figure out how to make things more sustainable. Right now, and I think, people can go and look at this, they are growing meat in labs, okay? Now, at the moment, it's costing $250,000 for a burger that's grown in a lab. Nobody in the right mind is going to pay that, if you've got, unless you've got the money. But over the next 20 years, that will become the norm. We will be growing meat in labs more sustainably, more environmentally friendly, and it will become the norm. So when we think about skills and we think about, it's not about learning a new coding language, it's about solving big problems. And people who can adapt to the problems facing will have a huge opportunity ahead of them, and they'll have a leg up on the rest of society, I believe.
Couple of points that has come in there on the chat just on that is problem solving. Also, the Ulster Employability team said top priority across all sectors. Agree, and education needs to play a big role in supporting the delivery of these skills. Jeff says since 2018, Apple stores, offices and data centers have run 100% renewable energy. Today, all our operations are carbon neutral too. The whole idea, Simon, though, of growing meat, like growing a burger, right? Growing a burger. Do you think people will know in the future whether it came from a cow or a lab? Or will it matter to them?
Okay, this is a personal opinion, and I know there may be some people who will totally disagree with that, and I think that's completely fine. But I think faced with three options, either we ruin the planet by over farming, or we all turn vegan, and actually we can't do that because we can't create enough of that type of food to sustain, billions of people and that are exponentially growing. We will have to have something else. And I see Donna has said, where does the farming sector go? I think farming has a huge role to play in this. I think they have to be part of the conversation. It's the same with, we look at the oil companies, we look at the coal mines, we look at all those people still have a role to play because they're highly skilled people. And I do believe it's not just as easy as turning the tap off in one sector and pumping billions into another sector. It has to be more joined up. But society's attitudes will, Elizabeth just said, society's attitudes will change. You will see that, and we're only here for a short space of time. You know, in 1,000 years' time, nobody will remember us. So
They will.
we have to make the most.
It's
Well,
really
they
sad,
might remember
Simon.
us for the wrong reasons, Susan. They might remember us for the wrong reasons. But you know, I think we have a short space of time here, and I think attitudes will change if we have to, if we are forced. We were forced existentially, globally, as a society, as a species, 14, 16 months ago. We were all forced to live at home. We were forced to, and we all adapted. In 20 years' time, I would say faced with something, and in fact, it'll be quicker, I think, in the next decade, faced with those big existential, you know, problems like the likes of climate change and so on, we will adapt. The vast majority of the society will adapt. You will always get the outliers who will go, I am not doing that. I'm going to live my life. No one is going to tell me what to do. But the vast majority of society will adapt. And personal opinion, but I believe people will adapt.
Laura's good. Laura said she would rather go vegan. Thank you. And indeed, Elizabeth said that people's attitude changes will, so that it will be more acceptable by society. And you know, if I was to compare this to another, you know, to another strand of where we said we'd never do something and where now we all do it, is imagine 20 years ago if someone said, in the future now, right, there will be a device in the corner that'll listen to everything you're saying and say, I won't sign, and what's more is you'll pay for it. What? No. Alexa, please play Saturday evening.
Still haven't got one, Susan. Don't give in.
But Susan, that was 40 years ago. George Orwell, 1984, predicted it, you know, and actually Brad Smith, there was a documentary on BBC this week, you know, very controversial. You know, he basically said we're probably a few years away from 1984. Not to go too dark or too dystopian on everybody that's listening, but it's incumbent in all of us to actually to learn. And it goes back to what Rachel said, you know, it goes back to the digital literacy. People need to understand the technology they're using, the ramifications, the problems, the challenges, the opportunities it creates. You know, but if we aren't careful, we could very well end up in a dystopian world. But a lot of the technology that we have around us has been predicted, you know, well before any of us were here.
Yeah, and John still needs to read 1984. So that I just want to, you're all talking about, actually, if there's one common theme I'm hearing from you all, and I want to put this to you, John, it's adaptability. Everyone is commenting on, like Rachel was talking about the adaptability of digital literacy. Shirley is talking about how the power of the people to come together to solve problems and potentially unlock the solutions to thousands more. Simon has said adaptability, I don't know how many times. So, John, like if there was ever a time that we have shown our adaptability, just like Simon said there, it has been in the last 15 months. So we all know what has happened, but what do we need to watch now? Because the world and its mother is talking about the future of the world of work, or will it be hybrid, will it be this? What are you watching in Tech Ireland that fundamentally will underpin the trends of tomorrow?
Well, but one big issue, actually, and you mentioned it earlier, Susan, was, you know, female participation. And you said there are more women sort of on the session today than men, which is fantastic to hear, because actually, you know, that's the great unrealized kind of resource, as it were. Females are so underrepresented in tech in Ireland. I mean, in the Tech Ireland database, it's the most comprehensive, about 3,000 companies. I think 84% of them are all male founder teams. 16% have one female in the founder team. All female teams are far less. So you know, we have come a long way in terms of that representation of the whole community in the tech. And unless we do that, you know, all this talk about adaptability and what have you, it's grand, but I think we need to do more to encourage female entrepreneurship. So it's great to see there are lots of females on the session today.
Well, I'll tell you exactly the breakdown here. According to the people who filled out the survey, is that we have 2/3 female and we have 1/3 male. Now, I know there are some people that haven't filled in the survey yet, and by the way, please do if you'd like, because I'll be putting those points. But based on what I've seen so far, yeah, that's the case, John. But this has been talked about forever. I mean, trying to encourage more women into X, Y, and Z. Could we put it to you? Is this a demand or supply issue? Is it that opportunities are being prevented are being blocked away from women, is consciously or unconsciously, or is it that women aren't putting themselves forward?
I think it's probably a bit of maybe a bit of both, but actually there is, I suppose, a deep cultural thing. I mean, I was involved in the National Student Entrepreneurship program, that second level. They had the national finals there 2 weeks ago, and I was involved in the judging of that. But you could see sort of, you know, the projects from females were around kind of life science, lifestyle kind of businesses. The guys tend to go for more tech, even at, you know, even at second level. So yeah, I think there needs to be a lot more role models, a lot more positivity to encourage, because that's actually a huge loss to society and to the wealth of the nation if we don't make the best value of everyone in society. Now, in fairness though, things are changing. Last year, for the first time, over 100 million, 105 million went into Irish companies with a female founder. So that was a milestone. The first time 100 million went in. Now 1.1 billion went in total, so it's still only 10% of the money, but nevertheless it is improving. When I did engineering in Galway, there was no female in my engineering class, which is kind of amazing now. I'm sure it's at 25-30% now in terms of females, I think. So it is changing, but we need more positive role models and more encouragement, I think, more female. And actually, just as we are speaking, and you are based in Northern Ireland, most of the people here are most of the participants. Northern Ireland actually is further behind in terms of numbers than the Republic in terms of female entrepreneurship.
Which Laura has just picked up on there. Laura says, I don't think schools in Northern Ireland encourage women into STEM subjects. I think the Republic are ahead in this regard. And indeed, there's also, you know, some other comments there that all about a variety of things there. And you know, please do keep the conversations coming. Can I ask though, John, the hybrid world, right? The hybrid world of work, the working from home a couple of days a week, or, you know, the death of 9 to 5. That could be more encouraging for women, and it may not be, and you know, we'll have to see that. But what do you think the next iteration of the world of work will look like? And if you don't know the answer, because, and again, a lot of us don't, what questions do we need to be observant of so that we can shape it? As you know, people who are employers and leaders and thought leaders on this call, what do we need to watch so that because we have a great opportunity now to shape it in the right way?
Absolutely, and I suppose all the technologies are, you know, that are available in terms of artificial intelligence, as you mentioned, and bots and more digitalization. So it is all there. How do we encourage it? How do we challenge it? I think the key thing is education, really. I mean, and having more training, and because this whole idea that the world is changing so rapidly. It is about encouraging everyone to think in terms of being, you know, keeping abreast of technology and the changes. That's going to be the real challenge. As we get older, we become less probably flexible in our thinking and less prepared to put the effort in to learn something new. So that's going to be the challenge for the future, I think.
Isn't there another challenge of this changing world as well in education? The education and technology is cyber. I mean, you know, John, both of us are close enough to Dublin, and we know that if we were to go into any hospital in Ireland at the moment, they wouldn't have our details because of a major cyber attack that's happening with the HSE. What's your take on that?
I think digital security is going to be one of the key challenges for society going forward, and as with remote work, with more displaced and distributed sort of workplaces, security and personal security, financial security, digital security, I think that's going to be the real challenge. And if I suppose I was starting again and you were looking at careers, that's an area that there's going to be enormous opportunities in, I think.
There has to be, and hopefully there are, John. Hopefully there are. So we wanted to deal with this again. Rachel, we've heard an awful lot now around adaptability, but actually where John is really delving down in terms of the cybersecurity point of view, adaptability for the next future of the world of work, and particularly the female issue, which is, by the way, causing a huge stir over here in the chat, so keep it coming, is all around education. And what I would be particularly interested is, how do we bring technology into education that maybe solves some of those problems, including, you know, and you mentioned it about being safe online. And we're not talking about like putting up pictures so that you can be asked about it a couple of years later, but like cybersecurity, enabling people who don't have access, who maybe want to build their own digital literacy. How would we use technology to enable us to solve other sustainability issues in the world?
Susan, I have tons of points, and I'm going to try and relay them back. Everyone's been saying some really fantastic things in the comments and everything. There's some really good stuff there, and it's just trying to throw a bit of a perspective on it. So to tie it all up together, it actually works really well. Going just back a little to the soft skill development, that needs rebranded. If anyone would like to come up with a new name for those skills that are actually incredibly difficult and valuable, please feel free. They are massively unavailable in certain sectors at the minute, the likes of engineering, manufacturing. They're definitely making a massive difference and are vital. So yes, I firmly believe the soft skill and technical skill development is out of sync at the minute, and I think that needs to be addressed. A couple of things that have been talked about that I think are really important. Simon and I usually tend to take slightly different positions on these things, so I'm really looking forward to getting into this. But when it comes to, I mean, I'm not going to discuss the current for or against position with a potential solution to COVID. We're just not going to go there today. But the polarized views in society with that, on whether or not it's safe or not safe, and if we're going to have Bluetooth microchips put into our bodies at this point, is a whole other conversation. But a few things from a social scientist perspective: technology is definitely moving much quicker than ever before, for sure. We know that. We're also having massive mental health struggles, and we're having massive well-being impacts. We're having a massive lack of connection and human-to-human connection that releases things that we know, like endorphins and dopamine and all that good stuff. And just because the tech is available, or just because it's a potential solution, doesn't mean it doesn't need to be regulated, or doesn't mean it doesn't need to have a human element of control. And my thought process on this is from the background I come from. That's really interesting. Maybe some of the engineers on the call can either tell me if I'm wrong about this or agree with me. Airplanes still have windows. There is no scientific, logical, engineering reason whatsoever for airplanes to have windows. All you can see is clouds. And in fact, it makes them more expensive and difficult to design. But humans will not get into an airplane unless they can see out of it. There's also no reason that the pilot should be at the front. They should actually be at the back. But people don't feel safe getting into an airplane if the pilot isn't at the front piloting the direction of travel. I feel when it comes to humans and change and adaptability, we did adapt to COVID. We don't know yet what the long-term impacts are on people and mental health. There's a lot of people have found this very, very difficult. So yes, sometimes we're forced to change, and yes, sometimes that change is good. But I think, you know, I don't want to quote Spider-Man, that with, you know, there's an element of huge responsibility that comes with this, and that's sort of the taking humans with you on the journey. We don't actually evolve as quickly as people think. We haven't changed in hundreds of years, actually, in terms of our chemical and physical makeup. So that's a whole piece to go with that. In terms of the digital and the cybersecurity and that whole piece, it is critical thinking, and it is empowering young people, I think, within the curriculum from an early age to understand. Yes, cancel culture now means if you put up a post when you're 15 and 10 years later it happens to be no longer accepted by society, that you potentially will lose your job and be put all over social media as cancelled for doing such a thing. I think there's an awareness there, but also your financial data, your personal data, the settings, the terms and conditions, the things that you accept, and having that conversation with yourself of, right, okay, I get free email, or I get free whatever my benefit is. Alexa opens my blinds for me. What am I giving up actually to do that, and what does that mean for me? And I think that's part of the wider conversation, that employers, when developing technology, bringing in systems that they think are going to change the world, I've seen a lot of companies have to reverse engineer out of systems that they've brought in for the damage that they've caused. So it's thinking of consequence and enabling that, but also with young people, just having that, rather than blindly going along with whatever the development is, taking that moment to do a little bit of research, understand what it is that you're trading for the tech, and understanding if you're okay with that.
Yeah, and you have indeed, you have a range of that, a range of points there that you brought up about rebranding soft skills, and that sense of connection. I didn't actually know that a pilot should be sitting at the back, but no, I wouldn't fancy either him or her, chilling out back there when they should be looking ahead. So and yet, of course, we all know that to a large degree, autopilot means that they're only sitting there. There's an awful lot they do, of course, but the technology is doing an awful lot of the work. Simon, lots and lots of people are talking about cryptocurrencies at the moment, and I think it would be remiss of us not to take on that topic when there's such conversation about it, and it's such a volatile conversation. It's such a volatile. Things are. Elon Musk is after tweeting about Dogecoin, and now he wants to put it in the moon. Okay, let's all buy that. Now we're hearing about digital, like central bank digital currencies, CBDCs. The conversation is now moving. And then, of course, after that, then, when we do get into the heart of the sustainability side of this, the production of mining Bitcoin, for example, absorbs huge energy. So could you just speak to that for a moment? Have you got any opinions? I'm sure you do. So maybe I should say, what are your opinions related to this area?
Yeah. Okay. So I should probably say, first of all, I am definitely not a cryptocurrency expert or a blockchain expert. So anything I do say here from here on in, please do not use it when you are investing or you're deciding to invest. That's my caveat there, because I don't want to be responsible for anybody losing or perhaps winning big on the markets. The cryptocurrency, quite rightly, is under the media spotlight. And I think where there's huge gains, financial gains to be had, is when you will see a lot of money flowing into those markets. One of the challenges I have with cryptocurrency just as an asset is that it is unregulated to a point, and it can be very, very volatile. A market being swayed 10, 20, 30% on the back of a tweet is very, very dangerous, and it does allow it does create a bit of volatility. So for example, if you held a stock, let's just say we held a stock in airlines, okay, and the chief executive of a competitor of that airline put a tweet out, that would have and that was it was like insider trading to a point, okay. That's illegal. You're not allowed to do that, okay. Things that change traditional stocks are, like the 9/11 for the airlines, the volcano, even the pandemic over the last 12, 18 months has totally smashed those trades. But when Elon Musk sends a tweet out and says that he's bought cryptocurrency, and all of a sudden the value goes from 40,000 or 36,000 to 60,000 in the matter of hours, that's not a real investment market. It's a lot of people making a lot of money. Cryptocurrencies as a future currency, there is merit to it, but I think there's a lot of work to it. The underlying technology driving cryptocurrency, blockchain, I think is where there's huge opportunity, because when we start talking about things like privacy and so on, that's where the opportunity is. So I think we've lost sight of the underlying technology that creates the cryptocurrency, and the underlying technology is blockchain, and blockchain technology has huge potential to unlock a lot of the challenges being faced in society right now, especially when a lot of people are talking about privacy and talking about you have to see what's happening with Facebook and Apple, and we won't get into that, but that's where I see the massive opportunity. When we talk about sustainability, Susan, yes, Bitcoin as one example is, and it stands to reason, when there's a lot of money to be made at anything, people will invest in it, and there will be more competition. But we're seeing things changing, and I wrote an article a few weeks ago about Bitcoin and about Elon Musk, and it was very, very, and if you just indulge me here, Susan, for a couple of minutes, it was very interesting that Elon Musk, who is a very intelligent man, okay, very intelligent, invested billions into Bitcoin, knowing the environmental impact that that had. And it was on the back of a company, Tesla, which prides itself on its environmental status within society and how they're trying to, you know, be environmentally friendly. So it was that's a very interesting point. And then 2 months later, he backtracks out of it. And that wasn't, I believe that was calculated, and it's my opinion, and it's calculated. But as soon as he backtracked out of accepting Bitcoin, all of a sudden the price dives, and I think it's sitting around 40,000. So that's an interesting play. But what he has done is he has shone a massive light on how unsustainable mining Bitcoin is. Because now all of a sudden you've got people like, you know, a lot of the mining operations for Bitcoin and you know, certain high value cryptocurrencies were in, dare I say it, rogue states, you know, so places like Iran, places like North Korea, China, and some other states had heavy industry, you know, basically just pumping out, you know, Bitcoin, okay? But they're now banning, you know, Iran, I think this week banned the mining of cryptocurrency, which is huge. You know, China's now looking at how they do it more environmentally. So whatever Elon Musk's thesis is, he has shone a massive light on how to make cryptocurrencies and Bitcoin specifically more sustainably, you know, more environmentally sustainable. But that's my sort of tuppence worth on cryptocurrency. I think it's a very volatile market right now. I think it will eventually, there will be some sort of national regulation will come in to make it a bit more stable, because it's up and down. It's all over the place. You know, I know people genuine, and I think, you know, if we were to take a quick poll on everyone on this call, we probably all know somebody who has made a fortune on cryptocurrencies, and likewise we probably know somebody who has lost a fortune. But I know somebody who at the start of the year invested a couple of $100 in Dogecoin, and it's now sitting, they're £100,000 better off, or $100,000 better off. Like, that is just insane. It is absolutely bonkers, and it is way too volatile, which is why the media are all over it. And I believe probably national governments will step in very, very soon to try and regulate it. But how successful they'll be, Susan, I don't know. I think we're in for a long fight on that one.
I'm very glad that you distinguished the difference between Bitcoin and the underlying technology, because I find, Simon, and I don't know whether you feel the same, is that they're often used interchangeably, and they shouldn't be. Blockchain is a totally different ballgame. I mean, Bitcoin is the payment that one gets from mining, from mining Bitcoin to actually create the chain in between the blocks. And I mean, the whole idea of the distributed ledger, the whole idea of immutable transactions, all of those things are definitely game changers. But that's not Bitcoin. That's like, and that's the thing. I have been for years training people on the difference between the two. So I think it's very important. I'm very glad that you mentioned about that. A lot of people don't know this, but Dogecoin was actually started off as a joke because so many people pronounce it incorrectly. But then, as you say, a tweet then landed on the moon. Yeah.
So, you know, anybody on the call, and you know, if you, after all this is over, like, I challenge anybody to go and set up a cryptocurrency. Like, anybody that's any technical ability on this call would be able to set a cryptocurrency up by the end of the day and have it trading on the market. That's how bonkers it is. Like, you can't set up a new currency. You know, a nation can't just set up, you know, how long did it take the euro to come into fruition? Like, I remember the adverts in the 90s. It's coming in 3 years' time. But, you know, like, to be able to set up a currency that can be traded on publicly available markets in the matter of hours is ludicrous. And the fact that it takes the energy consumption of the annual energy consumption of a small country to mine one Bitcoin for $40,000 is insane. It defies all logic. It defies all logic, but then when you think about the money involved, it doesn't, because there are people who are getting very wealthy on the back of it.
Well, and I mean, certainly there's so much more that we could delve into there beyond the technology, but I really do hope that people take away all right that Simon's point is that the underlying technology is a separate conversation to the last bit there that you were mentioning, and it does certainly merit that. Shirley, can I show you what the people on the call here today, where the type of organizations that they would like to work in, either are or would like to work in? And the reason I ask you this is, when it comes to the sustainability of a university, like, how is the education sector moving in this area, and how is Ulster University, you know, making itself relevant accordingly? So loads and loads of people want to work in small business. Fewer, but loads of people want to work in large business. Fewer, but lots, I would say, around about just over half would like to work on their own. Government, less so, but here's the first time that we're seeing a lot of people saying no. Then we also over here, then lots of people here interested in lecturing in academia. Now, I think this is, you know, a biased audience. Then we have international affairs. I got a lot of no's, and I was surprised at that. A lot of people said no, that they didn't want to be working in international affairs. Rachel, you're going to love this one. Lots of people interested. Lots of people in social entrepreneurship, but a striking number of people want a portfolio. So, Shirley, that is the landscape that we're talking about here. But my question to you is, how is universities upskilling people according to the half-life and so on, like that you were saying, according to where people want to go, according to the needs of those types of employers or opportunities? How are universities and Ulster University keeping a pace?
Thanks, Susan. That's actually super interesting. So, well, Klaus Schwab said on the future of work, really, that the bounty of technological innovation, which defines our human error, including cryptocurrency, everything involved in that, can be leveraged to unleash human potential. Okay, so Ulster University Business School strives to be the top university in the UK and Ireland for entrepreneurial education. Peter Drucker said that the entrepreneur searches for change, responds to that, and exploits it as an opportunity. So within the business school and within the university, we look at a co-creation approach. We work with businesses and public sector organizations to create new courses that really meet the dynamic and changing needs of businesses. We have embraced technology. We've been incredibly agile and adaptable. Gone are the days where the academics sat in ivory towers and a student had to come along and knock on their prof's door during the hours of 9 to 5. That doesn't happen anymore. And the courses, even right from the word go, from when we recruit our students. I was talking to some of our Bright students on the Deloitte Bright Start program this morning, and they loved the fact that they didn't have a traditional interview. To actually apply for the job, they had to do a game, and the game replicated how they would actually respond in a real world business situation. So we've developed a wealth of new courses, right, as I say, right from our Bright Starts, Assured Skills Academies program, right through as well to the really agile responsive programs that we've developed for people and companies that have been impacted as a result of COVID-19. And then we've developed a new program with the School of Computing called an MBT. It's the first in the world of its kind, the Masters in Business Technology, and it's been, as I said, developed in collaboration with the School of Computing and universities in Boston in the United States. So this is a new model of education, and what we're really finding, we're getting really positive feedback from the students on these types of courses. Really, Emer McGuire did one of her courses, and she said that for her, it gave her a real passion for business. She was able to unlock talent that she didn't know she had. She changed her business model for her own business, and it's actually much more profitable than it was pre-pandemic. But I think equally important, I've had a number of my students as well. So value creation in the traditional sense of entrepreneurship is about creating value to contribute to the knowledge economy, grow the economy, okay? That's in the traditional sense of value creation. I also like to think that in value creation that we are improving people and people are adding value so they can see out the window, especially in times of COVID when we've been locked in, and really understand the potential of where we can go to. And a lot of the feedback that we've had from our students, the courses for them have been truly transformational, not only to help them secure new jobs in the future of work, but to improve their mindset, their health, and their mental well-being. And I think in the future that's where Ulster University and higher education institutions can make a real impact.
Well, you know, Shirley, you mentioned there the MBT, the Masters in Business Technology, and I worked with Helen and Paul on, not on the creation of it, but I worked with them on that course as well, in some of the student support and so on. And what I really admire is the way Ulster University goes out to the industry and asks them, just like they did, like you mentioned, when they went to Boston, and said, what do you need for the skills of tomorrow, and let's build accordingly, as opposed to the other way around, which is, here's what we've built, now is it any good to you? I really admire that. I think that's something that's really innovative and different, and I think the scope of Northern Ireland and the relationships that the business school has with industry is very important in underpinning that. Can I also ask though, what change do you think, will there be a lasting change as a result of the fact that so many people participated in online learning for the past year, in terms of the way education will be delivered? Like all of Future Skills Week this week, every single session has been online, including this one. The sky didn't fall down. We had complete regional dispersion, and we had lots of ways of interacting. I mean, even looking here at the chat and the way people have been interacting all week. So do you think, will there be a lasting impact of the last year on how education is delivered in university sector, or was that a time that's gone?
I think there's been a lasting impact of the year of 2020 on all areas of society, and everybody has to adapt. And moving forward, we're looking at solutions. We have an absolutely fantastic new Belfast campus. Our students are really excited on being on that campus as a lifestyle choice for them, and it's much wider than just the education and the learning. It's about the wider experience, and when we're looking at different models and models that work well for our undergraduate, maybe different models that work really well for our executives. So we're creating models that work best for the sector in which we're delivering.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I mean, that's the thing, is that it is about using, the phrase "never waste a good crisis" is use what we've learned over the past while. John, you're the man behind an awful lot of data, so can I show you one last thing that everybody here has contributed to? And I just want to show you what they value, okay, what they actually value in their workplaces. Now, I said future job, I should have said future or existing, but so in this case, in your future job, how important is it to you that you spend your time doing tasks that you enjoy? 71% of people said 5 out of 5 of importance. 9 out of 31 said 4 out of 5, right? Extremely high. But if we go down here, how important is it to you that you work with great people? Is actually, there was a lower response. 71% of people value more. I would say there's more people here that value doing things that they like versus great people. Now, obviously, I didn't present the questions from a versus point of view. I'm just, doing data analytics here on the fly. But then I also asked this question, is in terms of the importance to them that their employer considers environmental impact, making a difference to society, and runs the company well, right? So there, in 3 letters, that was ESG factors. We see lesser importance than the above. So what do you see? In terms of coming down the track? What's the Tech Ireland data saying to you about the environment of when you're going to have founders who need to recruit people, when you have and beyond that as well, when you are looking for the talent that people will seek to recruit in startups? What are you seeing?
Is this the part where we all say you're on mute?
Yeah, this is the part where we say, John, you're on. And we couldn't have a meeting without someone doing that anyway.
I was waiting. I didn't think we'd got to that point yet.
Oh my God! I said I wasn't going to do it yet again. Sorry about that. That's a hard one, isn't it? But I think what's interesting to me isn't quite the differences between the 3, but how conscious people are about the environment and about the need to, for sustainability. I mean, the world is changing. Young people are actually much more aware than my generation was or is really, and it is going to be hugely important because all this talk about the potential for remote working is great, but in the longer term, there is the potential for remote working from much cheaper countries than Ireland. We're a very rich country. We're a very fortunate place to be in the world. The only way we're going to stay rich and stay on top of the heap is with education and technology and investing in people, really. So to me, that is the kind of the critical thing. The slight differences between would you like an interesting job or work with people? They're both they're both pretty similar, really. I mean, I know you're a data person, Susan, but in reality, in the big picture, I'd say they're kind of similar.
And it's an interesting point. Maybe I'm trying to decouple something that people generally put together. And indeed, you're right about the skills are, of course, dependent upon dependent upon the way in which we move forward and how we're going to upskill in people get there. Can I just ask, and I'm going to ask you all to maybe answer this in 30 seconds, because we are coming to I don't know where the time has gone. Well, I do, but you know what I mean. I just like to, one of the questions that I asked of people here is, I said to them, what's great about this generation? And we heard things like adaptability, resilience, vast variety of opportunities to explore, better connections through technology, want to make a change in the world for the better, like loads of brilliant things. And what I meant by that, what's the best thing about this generation? I meant no matter what generation that you're of. But can I just 30-second quick question to you all? What really is exciting you about the future? And already Rachel has kind of changed her body language entirely because she can't answer this one. So I'm going to go Rachel, Shirley, Simon, and John, and then I'm going to sum up, and then we'll bring our session to a close. Rachel.
Best thing about that, in terms of where we are right now across generations as well, I think, because, you know, millennials were blamed for avocado toast, Gen Z now, you know, we're getting blamed for something else. But actually, the macro trends across careers and employability are that all generations, all age categories are moving towards the same things, wanting, you know, good work-life balance, wanting an employer that cares about society. So it's very across the board. The best thing, I think, potentially is the positivity and the innovative capacity. I see an awful lot of people that have really great ideas, that there might be challenges, they're teaming up together to overcome things. You see it again with a lot of the social enterprise. I think Outside In, I know it was a Belfast-based fashion brand to you know, with proceeds going to help the homeless. The ideas of just doing, you know, let's get our heads together and do something and see where it takes us. And I think that's really, really exciting.
Shirley.
Yeah, no problem. So I asked my 6-year-old this question, Generation Alpha, always ask the next generation. I said to him, what's great about the world today? And he says, we're all here and we can speak to one another. And I thought about it and I thought, that's correct. Thomas L. Friedman said, the global pandemic has shown us that we are all inextricably connected, whether we choose to be or not. That's what makes us great about humans. It's also what makes us vulnerable. We can innovate to bring together great solutions. So you, generation who are living here, you can connect. You will work together, no matter where in the world you are. You'll work together beyond gender, beyond race, beyond region, beyond borders, to come up with innovative solutions to meet the challenges of sustainability and wider societal challenges for your and future generations.
Brilliant, Shirley. I like your 6-year-old's line of thinking for sure. Simon, and then John.
I think opportunity. I think we're actually at a stage now where we're no longer, we don't have to pigeonhole people. And, you know, and one of the things that I wanted to sort of jump in with John was the 9 to 5, I think, is dead. I think, and actually your data there proves that. I think the interesting stat that you had, Susan, was the portfolio type career and choice. You know, I think people don't have to work a job for 30 years. They don't have to work 9 to 5 and have 20 holidays a year. They can do whatever they want. They can live wherever they want. They can work wherever they want. And people, it's the opportunity is what excites me. And even somebody who's maybe, you know, has 20 years professional experience below me, I'm still enthusiastic about the opportunities that are ahead. And I'm not, I wouldn't be surprised if I change careers another 2 times before I retire, because the opportunity will be there to do it. It wasn't there 40, 50 years ago. It is now. And anyone coming into the workplace now should be really, really excited.
Brilliant. Brilliant indeed. What a lovely note. And John, the last word on this.
Well, I suppose climate change, the global warming, they are the challenges that are probably the largest and the most important that face our generation, really. And you can call them challenges or you can call them opportunities. And there's going to be enormous opportunities in all of the implications of global warming and climate change and recyclability and the circular economy, they are going to provide so much stimulus to new business, new innovation, new ways of working. So I think that's going to be the defining kind of, I suppose, opportunity of this next generation, really.
Brilliant. Well, I'm going to put together a summary, but I'm not going to do it now. I'm going to do it and I'm going to post it on LinkedIn later because as you may know, the entire last session of Future Skills is actually happening in about 120 seconds time with David Mead. So all I'm going to do is I'm just going to say, guys, honest to God, to the four of you, thank you so much indeed. That was really, really good, very holistic. You really brought your passion to it. You absolutely spoke to both themes of tech and sustainability and how they were interwoven together. So on this note, I'm going to hand it back to the Ulster University Careers team for you to close the session off. And again, thank you so much indeed to Simon, to John, to Rachel, and to Shirley.
Well, what a
Thanks,
panel!
Susan.
What a panel! Amazing. Thank you so much. Sorry we have to rush you at the end, but yep. David Mead is kicking off in about 120 seconds. I've put the link into the chat box for anyone who'd like to join us. Any students that are still with us as well, just to make you aware of the free advice and coaching sessions that are being offered on the Future Skills Week site. So this is Susan, is one of the wonderful contributors here. You would have to pay quite a bit of money for this expertise, and we're offering it to you for free as a follow-up to Future Skills Week. Also, any student who would like to get EDGE accreditation for Future Skills Week can now do so. The link is live on the main site into the chat box. So it remains for me to stop the recording. Thank everybody again, all of this expertise, all of this time that you've given us. We really, really appreciate it.